Getting a great financial head start in life is so important. And one of the things we've talked about over the years here at Nomad Capitalist is that when you're in your 20s, every extra dollar counts, whether it's through lower taxes, lower cost of living, lower business costs, or greater opportunity where you actually make more money. Those dollars over the course of a lifetime are going to compound in a big way. We're talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for some of you, serious generational wealth. So today, I'm going to share with you one financial advisor's 10 millionaire success tips to apply in your 20s and put my own Nomad Capitalist spin on them. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where myself and our team of nearly 50 people around the world, our network of global experts I've met over the last dozen years, we all help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you are treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And I think for all the young and aspiring nomad capitalists, it's important to really get a great start in life. If you are watching this and you are in your 20s, I mean, no matter what age you are, this is important, but if you're in your 20s, going overseas, staking your claim, you're going to find so many opportunities, you're going to pocket so much extra money, and then you can play it easy in the rest of your life if you want, or you can use that as the beginning to really go a lot faster in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. So many people don't even get started in business and investing until they're in their 30s, let alone, have a solid foundation where they're not paying 50% in tax and all that. Anyway, today I'm going to share with you some tips I found on CNBC. It's from a financial advisor named Farron Doggs, and he's got 10 tips, money habits of self-made millionaires that you can apply starting in your 20s. And the first one is they avoid debt. Now, some of these tips are very general personal finance. I think general personal finance is often what causes most people to win. It's the simple things that people do repetitively that cause people to win. I have said I don't use debt. Now, we had Robert Kiyosaki at Nomad Capitalist Live. Talked to him, like him a lot. He uses debt for deals. I don't use debt. And I think when you go overseas, you're going to have a lot fewer opportunities to use debt, either because you're not an American and you've got to, in order to leave your country's tax net, you've got to cut up your credit cards in many cases, or because you're going to do a real estate deal in an emerging market where there's just not a lot of credit available, or if it's there, it's at terrible terms compared to Western rates. You're going to pay 10%, 15 years, 30% down, right? So debt is harder to get into when you go overseas. I think that's probably a good thing, but avoiding debt was tip number one. Tip number two, they buy their cars and they plan to keep them long term. Now, we've all heard, buying a new car, you're wasting a lot of money. Now, what I have said is I do think that if you're following the stuff we talk about, I've got a couple guys right now who are in their young 20s making anywhere from $1 million to $4 million a year in their business. I have a lot of guys who are doing crypto. Obviously, that's a bit harder to predict. But for the business guys, some of them are splurging. They have watch collections. They have a nice car. I'm all for that. Especially if you're making that $4 million, for example, and you're living in a country that's taking $2 million from you and flushing it down the toilet, and you can go to somewhere and pay $200,000. Sure, take some of the resulting $1.8 million that's left, spend some on lifestyle, save some and invest it, maybe give some away. You've got $1.8 million extra dollars every single year to work with in that case. Don't shy away from buying a nice watch. But it's important to understand where your money is going. I think bigger than cars, bigger than the money you waste on buying a new car and having it depreciate when you drive off the lot, is the money that you waste every single year. Not every 3 or 4 years, but every single year funding a government that we've seen during this pandemic does not care about you. So cars, I don't have a car. One day, maybe I'll get a car, maybe I'll settle down enough to where I feel comfortable buying a car, the kind of car I would want to drive for 2 months. But certainly, going overseas might make it to where you say, you know what, I don't even want a car. That's an expense I don't need to make. I realized I only had one because all my friends, all my business associates, all my colleagues, they had a car where I lived. Certainly was the case with me when I lived in the US. You had to have a certain kind of car. You had to have a car. When you go overseas, you get to write more of your own ticket, but at least you should be aware. Intentional spending, I think, is the lesson I take away from that. Number 3, they have emergency funds, definitely very important. Here's the thing. If you're in your 20s, one thing I've said is, if you're not at the $1, $2, $3, $4 million level yet, take this opportunity. There's so many emerging countries in the world where great fortunes are being made. Had a gentleman I worked with about a couple years ago. He had businesses all over Africa. I think he was about 40, but he had been doing it for 15 years. He had the simplest of businesses that were making so much money. You wouldn't make this much money moving cement in the United States or the UK or Australia or Germany, but you can do it in Namibia or Mozambique. Now there's a bigger adjustment, obviously. There's a reason you're making more money. But if you're young, there's so many places to go. If you go there, certainly you want to have an emergency fund. I've been doing that my entire life, but at least you can have a smaller emergency fund. When I happened to stumble on a map the other day, someone sent me an address of something in California. I said, oh, how far is that from where I used to live in California for 6 months? And I mapped it out. It's a 45-minute drive, and it said if you want to take an Uber, it costs $100. I took a 45-minute drive the other day. It cost like $7. And so if you imagine you're young and in your 20s, you're trying to build a career, imagine how much extra you could save and how much less you could put in your emergency fund if Uber cost $7 instead of $100. So that's number 3. Number 4 is they invest. Very important. Automatic investing, things like that. Again, investing is very important, but where are you investing? I don't invest a lot in US stocks, mutual funds, what have you. Why? Sure, that's the easy thing to do. I grew up there, I understand it. And yes, there are some good opportunities there. In fact, one of the funds that I have in the US has done very well. It's actually outperformed a lot of funds in a very recent time period. But I'm a bigger believer in saying, all right, what's India doing? What's Indonesia doing? What are so many up and coming markets doing? I know that some people are less comfortable in the financial community with like Middle East, North Africa, those kind of markets. But you look at Latin America, you look at so many places, Eastern Europe, there's so many opportunities to invest. And so my perspective is, yes, invest. Once you build that career, obviously invest as much back into your business as possible. Invest back into what's made you successful, whether that's crypto, whether that's whatever it is. But set some money aside and invest that into something different. Be a little diversified. But do it outside of the framework of which you know. If you want to invest in real estate, Robert Kiyosaki talks a lot about real estate, for example. Don't think that just because you're from a country, that's where you should buy real estate. Find the place to buy real estate with the lowest taxes, the easiest maintenance, the greatest infrastructure to manage your property, the lowest government overreach, all that kind of stuff. So invest in a place that is treating you best. Go where you're treated best. Number 5, they take advantage of everything their employer has to offer. Now, this is very U.S.-centric. It talks about matching, IRAs and 401ks. This I disagree on. If you're in your 20s, now, I speak to entrepreneurs, I speak to investors. If you've got a job, number 1 is that a job you want? Do you want to be an employee? Some people have told me. I gave Bob Iger's book to some people on my team. And do you know what some of them took away from it? They said, I want to grow and become a great employee in a great company. That's what I want to do. That's fantastic. If you're going to go that direction, then perhaps you do want to take advantage of what your employer has to offer. But I will tell you, I see many former employees who are now becoming more entrepreneurial, who made money in crypto, and they have hundreds of thousands of dollars stuck in government retirement accounts because they got a little tax deduction or because they got a match. You wouldn't believe how much hate I get. Andrew, you have to take the match at all times. You're throwing away $2,000. And then I see people, they come to me, they're 33 years old, and they've done very well investing. And that, now they're trapped in some kind of retirement account, a qualified retirement account, where what do you do now? You've got to take the money out. You're 33 or whatever, and you have taxes and penalties to get the money out. And there's so many opportunities because they're following the other steps that we're talking about. They're doing what we talk about at Nomad Capitalist. They're investing in frontier markets. They're starting their own business, and they may not be able to get access to that money in the qualified retirement account. So if you want to be an employee, nothing wrong with that. But definitely understand the long-term effect of taking advantage of a match or a small tax deduction now. Very important. Number 6, they don't try and keep up with the Joneses. Again, I think what going offshore teaches you, moving to another country, it teaches you to be intentional. I am not about cheaping it out. And certainly if you go to certain places in the world, there will be expat communities where many of them will be into cheaping it out. And so you want to keep that in mind. How are you going to find friends in those places? Or are you going to go to places that have more wealthy people? But buy what you want. If you're being successful, invest back in yourself. I'm not going to tell you a nice purse or a pair of shoes is an investment. This new purse, it's a beautiful investment. No, it's not. But it could be a nice thing to do to yourself to keep you motivated, keep you enjoying life, keep you grinding. But don't do it because everyone else is doing it. And I think when you go overseas, you get out of that bubble. Number 7, they utilize tax deductions. To me, what I talked about, and I really talked a lot about it, Nomad Capitalist Live this year, was there's a mindset shift. When you go overseas and you realize the tax rate is now 0 or 1 or 2 or 5% to where the deductions don't matter, you start changing your behavior. You start changing your mindset. It's a shift, and it's hard to get into it before you actually do it. You stop front-loading those expenses at the end of the tax year to get that deduction because you can just live life organically. So I think that rather than focus on tax deductions, how do you go where you're treated best? How do you find a tax rate that you're happy with, whether it is 0 or 5 or even 10, giving money to a place where maybe you're happier giving it to them versus where you're paying taxes now. Maybe at least you can go somewhere and get something for your money. But don't focus on tax deductions. Focus on choosing your tax rate by making a conscious decision to go where you're treated best. To me, that's one of the things that they teach you. It's kind of this licking around the edges financial advice that they do in Western countries. Oh, get your tax rate down from 39 to 37. That'll have a big impact. How about from 39 to 7? How about that? Now that has a big impact. Number 8, they look for other income streams. Definitely important. Number 9, they start saving for their kids' college early on. Again, if you're in the United States, what does college cost these days? What is college, if you've got a newborn, what's college going to cost in 18 years? $500,000? More? The challenge, number 1, some people should go to college, university, what have you. I think that the paradigm of raising your children with the things that we're talking about gives them a lot more flexibility where possibly you say, listen, here's 25 grand, here's your emergency fund for 2 years potentially. Go to Cambodia, go to, Ecuador, go to Georgia. Go to so many of these emerging countries, figure out something go to Africa, figure out something that no one has done yet. Start that ice cream parlor that becomes a multi-million-dollar business. Start the cement moving company that becomes an 8-figure business, and you can dominate the market. So I think that giving your kids that flexibility is a great lesson. And I think by taking advantage of the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle, you can much more easily pay this stuff. You don't need to save into 529 plans if you are living the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle. But I guess if you're consenting to pay 37 or 40 or 50% tax, then I guess those things work. But here's what I'll also say. Consider sending your kids to a school that's less expensive somewhere out of the country. There are schools in Europe that are practically free in comparison to the US. There are schools around the world that are better. And so if you're going to start saving for your kids' college early on, you can afford it much more easily if you're living the lifestyle we're talking about. But whether you're going to do that or not, at least consider the fact that there are cheaper options outside of your country that are just as good, if not better. Number 10, very important, they seek advice. So important in the offshore world we work in. There's so many moving parts. I'm learning something every day. Something's changing every day. Something's opening up and something's closing every day. It really is constantly moving. And so definitely a great advice. I know what it's like to be a control freak entrepreneur, but definitely seek advice. So good basic financial advice. And I think if you're going to live in the US, you're going to live a normal life. It's not bad advice. If you want to be intentional, I love that word intentional, and you want to go where you're treated best, you realize that this, nibbling around the edges is not the way to go. You want to make as much progress as possible. That's why you go overseas, you physically move yourself, possibly to a place with much more opportunity. You can find new businesses, you can meet new people, you can pay a lot less in taxes, you diversify, you invest in markets that are up and coming, you protect yourself, you don't leave all your eggs in one country's basket. Who knows what one country like the US could do with your retirement accounts? Look at Poland, look at so many other places. Retirement money was like, easy pickings for them. So you want to be diversified, and I think you have to go beyond the we're in the US bubble financial advice and go to the go where you're treated best financial advice. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.